was alive with motion, the boys moving in tandem with the monkeys, their thin bamboo stalks slicing through the air like fencing foils in a duel. Leaves fell around them, their descent slow and deliberate, as though the jungle itself was watching their progress. Fitzroy's grip on the bamboo was tight, his knuckles white as he mimicked the swift, precise movements of the monkeys. Garret stood opposite him, his stance awkward but determined, his eyes fixed on the old man, who paced the edge of the clearing with his staff tapping a steady rhythm against the ground. With time, we grew, and the old died. We became our routines, until all that remained was focus. Doing and not thinking, when the time for thinking had long passed. The boys' movements are clumsy at first, their strikes uneven, their footing unsure. The monkeys darted around them, their small bamboo reeds flashing in the sunlight as they demonstrated the techniques with an uncanny precision. The old man grunted occasionally, his sharp gestures correcting their form, his pale eyes watching with an intensity that made Fitzroy's skin prickle. Slowly, the boys began to refine their movements, their strikes sharper, their footing steadier. The awkwardness faded, replaced by a rhythm that felt almost natural. Buddha's teachings claim that we suffer because we desire. The seasons shifted, the clearing transforming with each passing day. Fitzroy and Garret sparred in the cold, their visible breaths mingling with the steam rising from their sweat-soaked bodies. Their training wild and brutal, each strike landing with a force that scarred, split lips, bloody knuckles, black eyes. Fitzroy winced as Garret's foot connected with his ribs, the pain sharp and immediate. Garret cursed as Fitzroy's fist slammed into his jaw, the impact sending him stumbling backward. The injuries piled up, dislocated fingers, sprained wrists bound with makeshift splints, and the occasional accidental shot to the groin that left them both doubled over in shared agony. But they didn't stop. The pain was a teacher, the bruises and cuts reminders of their progress. Fitzroy felt the ache in his muscles, the sting of his wounds, and knew he was growing stronger as it all became easier to ignore. And the strongest desires bind us with the strongest chains. Spring rains turning the clearing into a muddy battlefield. The boys' movements were slower now, their footing uncertain as the earth shifted beneath them. Vegetation sprang up around them, the jungle reclaiming its space. But the boys didn't falter. They fenced once more, their bamboo stalks slicing through the air, the mud splattering their legs with each step. The boys' strikes become sharp, their movements deliberate, focus unyielding. Matching each other with equal precision, eyes locked in conflict, their silent competition driving them forward. Long had I forgotten what to desire. My home, my father, England, they felt like dreams of long ago. And the bamboo clearing became a place not just of training, but a crucible, a space where the boys were forged into something new, into something that could challenge the darkness. Fitzroy felt the weight of the bamboo in his hands, the sting of the sweat dripping into the tears in his skin, and knew he was changing. The memories of his past, his father, his home, were distant now, blurred by the passage of time and the relentless focus of survival. And his companion, Garret, was a mirror to his own demons, their shared struggle binding them in ways neither could fully understand. The afternoon sunlight pressed weakly against the tent's canvas walls, its dim glow barely illuminating the quiet corners of the space. Fitzroy and Garret were hunched over the small wooden board, their attention fixed on the intricate game of Go unfolding before them. The black and white markers dotted the grid like soldiers in formation, their positioning deliberate, their purpose calculated. Fitzroy furrowed his brow, his fingers brushing against one of the stones before placing it with care. Garret mirrored him, his lips pursed as he studied the board with quiet intensity. The flap of the tent suddenly stirred, and chaos entered. The three monkeys darted in, their wiry bodies brimming with mischievous energy. Without hesitation, they launched themselves at the game, their nimble fingers snatching the stones from the board and tossing them between each other like playful thieves. Fitzroy and Garret shouted in protest, scrambling to catch the markers as they disappeared into the air. The tent became a whirlwind of movement, the boys reaching and grasping while the monkeys chittered and shrieked, their laughter-like calls filling the space with a manic, relentless sound. Chaos. But even chaos knew its place and froze in an instant in the presence of the old man. Silent and stoic, the old man entered the tent, a quiet command that stilled the air. The monkeys stopped mid-motion, their hands clutching the stolen markers as their wide eyes shifted guiltily toward the aged figure standing in the doorway. He didn't speak, but his gaze was sharp, his suspicion palpable. Slowly, deliberately, the monkeys returned the markers to the board, their movements sheepish, their earlier energy subdued. The old man's stern expression softened into something resembling amusement. With a curt motion, he signaled to the boys, his hand rising and falling with practiced ease. Fitzroy and Garret exchanged a glance, then followed him, leaving the game and the chaos behind. The path shifted like a snake along the riverbank, its winding course shaded by the towering canopy of trees overhead. The jungle was alive, its sounds weaving into a symphony of rustling leaves, distant bird calls, and the gentle murmur of the river. Fitzroy and Garret walked behind the old man, their steps deliberate as they navigated the uneven terrain. The monkeys darted around them, their chaotic movements contrasting the deliberate pace of their human companions. Our aged mentor was yet another mystery of this island. He looked 100 years old, or perhaps twice that, but time had not sapped his strength nor spirit. The old man moved with surprising vigor, his staff tapping against the ground as he pointed to the sights around them. Exotic plants lined the river's edge, their vibrant colors demanding attention. Birds flitted through the trees, their wings flashing in the sunlight like jewels in motion. Fitzroy and Garret paused occasionally, their eyes tracing the shapes and textures of the jungle, their curiosity piqued by the unfamiliar beauty. The monkeys climbed effortlessly through the trees, their nimble bodies retrieving strange-looking fruit from the branches. They dropped the pieces into the boys' waiting hands, their chittering laughter urging them to taste. Fitzroy bit into the fruit first, the initial sweetness giving way to an overwhelming bitterness that made him grimace. Garret followed, his reaction identical. They spat the fruit onto the ground, coughing and groaning in disgust. The monkeys fell to the earth, rolling in the dirt in a fit of laughter, their small forms shaking with exaggerated glee. The old man watched them, his lips curling into the faintest of smiles. He was our guide, more than our master. There were things in this world that should be seen, and he was there to show us. Without bias, without opinion, the perfect example of an honest teacher. The river's current was steady but gentle, its clear waters rippling against the stones that lined the bottom. Fitzroy and Garret stepped into the stream, the coolness of the water biting at their legs as they waded across. Each boy carried a monkey on his shoulders, their small hands clutching their shirts tightly as they balanced precariously. Fitzroy felt the slight tug of the monkey's grip, its presence both grounding and irritating. But the old man remained dry, his ingenuity evident as he sat cross-legged on a large leaf, his staff extended into the water like a gondolier's pole, pushing himself forward with practiced ease. The leaf floating gracefully across the stream. The third monkey perched atop the staff, its posture impossibly steady, its small body swaying with the motion of the current. Fitzroy watched them with a mixture of amusement and admiration, his pace quickening as he reached the opposite bank. Garret followed, the weight of the monkey on his shoulders pulling him slightly off balance. The boys emerged from the stream soaked but smiling, their spirits lifted by the absurdity of the moment. The valley was swallowed whole by the mist, an endless expanse of murk and shadow, where each step felt more uncertain than the last. The jungle, usually alive with the chatter of insects and the calls of hidden creatures, was subdued, its symphony muffled by the dense fog that blanketed the world. Fitzroy gripped the rope tightly, his fingers curling around the rough fibers as if it were the only thing tethering him to reality. The old man led them, his silhouette barely visible ahead, the golden rings on his staff chiming faintly with each deliberate step. Garret followed close behind, his head lowered, his expression masked by the haze. Even the monkeys, so often mischievous and erratic, seemed subdued, their small hands clutching the rope with uncharacteristic care. The mist reduced everything to fragments, snatches of sound, fleeting glimpses of movement. And the boys relied on the old man's unwavering pace to guide them through the void. As they rounded a severe cutback, the mist thinned just enough to reveal a break in the gloom. Fitzroy squinted against the faint light, his breath catching as a vibrant arc of color emerged overhead. The rainbow stretched across the sky, a luminous contrast to the oppressive grey that surrounded them. Garret tapped Fitzroy's shoulder, pointing wordlessly to the sight. For a moment, the boys stood still, their eyes wide with wonder, the beauty of the moment cutting through the weight of their journey. And when the mist finally gave way and receded, it revealed a hidden paradise, a lagoon nestled deep within the jungle, untouched and pristine. The water shimmered under the midday sun, its surface painted with the colors of the rainbow that poured into it from above. The waterfall crashed into the lagoon with a steady roar, the sound echoing off the surrounding cliffs and filling the air with a sense of vitality. Fitzroy and Garret stepped forward hesitantly, their eyes scanning the scene as if it might disappear at any moment. The old man stood behind them, his face calm, his gaze fixed on the water. With a gentle motion, he waved the boys away, his intention clear. Fitzroy hesitated, his brow furrowed in confusion. But Garret's tentative step forward spurred him into action. They shared a glance, and then shed their uncertainty like an old skin. For the first time in years, Garret and I forgot about everything we were doing and just became boys once more. The cliff above the lagoon became their playground, the edge a launch pad for daring feats of youthful abandon. Fitzroy leapt first, his arms spread wide as he plummeted into the water, the splash sending ripples across the lagoon's surface. Garret followed, his shout of exhilaration swallowed by the roar of the waterfall. Again and again they climbed and jumped, their laughter ringing out over the sound of the crashing water. Each leap was a small rebellion against the lives they'd been forced into, a fleeting reclaiming of innocence long forgotten. The old man watched from a rock on the shore, his expression soft with an amusement rarely seen. He laughed openly, his usual stoicism melted away in the glow of the boys' joy. The monkeys played around him, their antics as carefree as the boys' dives, their small bodies rolling in the sand and swinging from low branches. They played until the sun crept low in the sky, its golden light warming the lagoon's surface as shadows lengthened around its edges. Fitzroy and Garret finally paused, their breaths heaving, their arms and legs heavy with exhaustion. They floated on the surface of the water, staring up at the sky, their reflections distorted by the gentle ripples. Sunset came too soon, ending our fun. And with the darkness creeping in, so did the feeling that we were not boys anymore. On the shore, the monkeys lay sprawled out on the sand, their small chests rising and falling in time with their breaths. The old man's smile faded as his gaze turned thoughtful, his hand resting lightly on the staff beside him. Fitzroy climbed out of the water first, his movements slow, deliberate. Garret followed, his wet clothes clinging to his frame as he joined Fitzroy on the sand. The lagoon's magic seemed to dissolve with the daylight, replaced by the weight of the night pressing in around them. Fitzroy and Garret exchanged a glance, their earlier joy tempered by a shared understanding. The old man gestured for them to gather their things, his expression a reminder of the world waiting beyond the lagoon. As they prepared to leave, Fitzroy turned back for one last look. The water shimmered faintly in the fading light, the rainbow's colors dim, but still present. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to believe in the magic of the place, even as he felt its hold slipping away. Then he turned, the sound of the waterfall fading behind him as they began the journey back through the darkening jungle.